I just don't get how you have some of these animals as pets. Like a tiger or a bear. Like, what is there a dog park for bears that you take your bear to? That's the theme for Barron Park? Oh, interesting. Oh, hey! Sorry. Welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Taylor, and today we're doing a Kickstarter video for Reapers. It's by Daniel Newman, and this was a compensated video. The publisher sent me a copy of the game. So take everything I say with a grain of plain salt, specifically. And the hook to Reapers is you'll be drafting your hand, but after you draft, you'll then be making wagers on how strong or maybe how weak you think your hand is. So let's go to the table and I'll show you how to play. The deck in Reapers is made up of 4 suits numbered 2 through D. The 10 is added at a 5-player game, and what the D is, it just beats the highest card. So D beats 10 and 9 no matter the player count. Also in the deck are 5 Reaper cards. Here we have the game partly set up for 3 players, so each player is going to get their own color, and 3 wager cards that are exactly the same for each player. Next, we're going to shuffle the deck and make piles of 3 until the deck is empty. So here all the cards are split into 3 piles each. You're going to have 1 card left over. This is going to be trump, so green for this game. And then to the left of the dealer is going to start the draft. So let's say it's this ace here. So they're going to pick a pile, and maybe they want a strong trump hand, so they take the 8 and 6 of trump and the 9 of the other color. They'll take this into their hand, and then it'll go to the player to the left. So then the blue person will draft cards. Maybe they draft those 3. And then the pup character, purple up here, will then draft 2 in a row. So it's a snake draft. So they'll draft 2 in a row, then it'll come back to the blue player. Then the red player will draft 2 in a row. Once players have drafted their hand, so they'll have 12 cards at 3 players, there will be a pile of 3 left over, and this is known as the graveyard, which I'll explain in just a little bit. So before the trick taking happens, players are going to bet or make a wager on what they think is going to happen in the round. So there's 3 different types of wagers. There's kind of a null wager, meaning you just want points and you don't care kind of what happens. It's like a non-wager and you'll get 4 points no matter what. Then there's, I think I'm going to take the least amount of points of anyone at the table. And so at 3 players, that'll get you 20. And then there's, I think I'm going to take the second most points out of everyone at the table, and that's worth 9. So players will look at their hand, kind of make a judgment of which they want to wager. So maybe this player thought they drafted a pretty weak hand. They're going to say, I think I'm going to get the least amount of points, but it's all secret. So they'll put their card face down as their wager, and each player will do that. And then now the trick taking starts. So the player to the left of the dealer will lead to the trick, and it's a must-follow game. So say the ace of spades here plays a 9 of knives. The blue player must play a knife suit. The other thing they can play is one of these Reaper cards, but I'll explain that in a little bit. Say they just played the 7 knives. So now it comes to the pup player, and again, they have to follow suit, so they look through their hand, and they're actually going to play this 3. So in Reapers, when you win the trick, you don't collect the trick. What goes into your score pile is the lowest card in the trick. So this is actually 3 points to the skeleton hand here, and you'll just discard these cards. So then the winner of the trick leads again. So maybe skeleton leads with an 8 of trump. The blue player doesn't have any trump, so they can play whatever they want. Maybe they play this 5 of knives, and then coming to the purple player, they decide to play the D of trump. And so what that does is it wins the trick. But if you ever win a trick with a D in it, you don't take the lowest, so they don't take the 5 here. They actually take this D. And what this does is, at the end of the game, it will double the points of your lowest valued card. So say, over the course of the game, pup had this, and this one into their score pile. This is 2, and then this would double the 2. So this would actually be 4 points total. And then they would lead the next trick. So maybe they lead with a 4 orange. So looking at skeleton's hand here, they could follow suit and play the 6 knife suit, but they have a Reaper. And I'll explain what Reapers do is at any time you can play them into the trick. And they take the top card of the graveyard. So they'll get this 2 into their score pile. The interesting thing about Reapers though is it only happens on the first time a Reaper is played. So say blue player plays one of their Reapers, they won't collect from the graveyard, it will just go wasted. So then the purple person won this trick with the 4, so they'll get this 4 in their score pile and lead to the next trick. Play continues until everyone's played all their cards in their hand, and then you evaluate if anyone made their wager. Fast forwarding to the end here, we can look at the score piles for each player. So for blue, they just got 4, 4, and 5, so they got 13 points, pretty standard. Red got 11, and then looking at purple here, remember they got a few of the demons, so those will times their lowest cards. It looks like the 2, 3, 4 are their lowest, so they'll get 4, 6, and 8 plus 5. In addition to those totals, they'll also see if they made their wager card. So purple was trying to get the least. They did a horrible job, so they did not hit their wager, they'll get 0 points. Then red was also trying to get the least. They did hit their wager, so they'll get 20 more points. And then blue over here decided not to make a wager at all, so they'll just get 4 points. Then you pick up the cards, shuffle and deal, and play another round. At 3, you'll play 6 rounds. At 4, you'll play 4, and 5, you'll play 5 rounds. And whoever has the most points at the end wins. So that is Reapers. And the drafting of this is smooth. The fact that they do the snake drafting and drafting 3 at a time, it quickens it up for sure. We've covered drafting games on the channel before, like Vassticht or Volltreffer. And those are very specific in their drafting, very granular. And this, by kind of grouping the cards and having the snake draft, kind of speeds it up. So if you like drafting and wanted it to be a little quicker, I think you would enjoy the draft in this. I think the draft helps you get a sense of the perceived strengths of everyone's hands, because it's still open information. So when you're making the wager of whether you think you have the weakest hand or the second strongest hand or whatever you think, those 3 wagers help you kind of hone in on what to watch in the draft. After you draft, the card play is pretty basic. It adds some interesting with like when do you play your trump or when do you play those Ds, the demon cards. But also the Reapers are kind of nice. The pacing sometimes of the Reapers, of waiting for someone to maybe play your Reaper first if there's a really weak card in the graveyard, so that you can try to play your Reaper second to get a higher value card in the graveyard. So I like that there's a little bit of a delayed gratification with the Reapers. And the fact that you can't lead them is cool too, because you have to really plan, if you're trying to go second or third to the graveyard, not to mess yourself over and have a lead by the time that second or third slot opens up. So I think there's some cool timing in the trick taking. Other than that, it's pretty simple. I think more of the gameplay depends on the drafting and the wagering. The wager cards can lead to interesting moments. I think if you're going for second or least, there's a fun tension there. I think if you're just going for the most, like you draft a really good hand, you're just like, I'm going for the most, it's probably a less interesting hand, and I've noticed it yields a lot of points. So I don't know if the wagering when you have a great hand is as interesting as trying to get second or least amount of points. So some of the wagers are more fun than others, and it would be cool to see maybe different wagers or additional wagers to kind of add some variety to the game. I like it best at 3 because it's fun to kind of like silo people into those roles. When you watch someone draft a really good hand, you're like, okay, that's the strongest person. At 4, it's kind of tough to gauge, especially at 5, it's kind of tough to gauge what who's going to be the strongest, and then you try to be the second strongest. And sometimes you can just miss it by being 3rd or 4th at 5. And that's tough, I think. So at 3, you kind of have a little bit easier of a time parsing it. So that is Reapers. And if you're looking for a streamlined drafting game with kind of more simple trick play and a wagering system that allows the drafting to be a little bit more at the forefront, definitely check this out. So thanks so much for watching.